Hello and welcome to Embracing Extraordinary podcast. I'm Deidre.
And I'm Jodie, and we're here to create a space for you to explore, expand, and embrace that extraordinary exists, is possible, and how extraordinary you truly are.
To hug, hold, accept, and embrace it to create your most extraordinary life.
Welcome to part 2 of this conversation around welcoming in the new year, where we move into chatting about the importance of not just creating your dreams and desires into reality, but the game-changing piece of the puzzle, which is your capacity and personal settings to hold them and the amount of goodness you dream in. If you haven't done so already, be sure to tune into and listen to Ep.5 for part 1 of this conversation, where we lay the foundation and context for welcoming in the new year you dream of and the power of reflection and intention. So now, let's move into part 2 of this conversation. We hope you enjoy. So, looking forward, I look at, okay, so with, the dreams in my business or in my personal life or abundance or love or joy or whatever it is, if I was experiencing that right now, I do go to a place of what would that be like? And there's an area that I actually want to focus on a lot more of this year that is getting into the whole energetic part of it and starting to create that familiar ahead of the event, because I do it with some things, but it's actually something I want to show a lot more commitment for this year. And I know that I have it within me to be able to do that. So
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And I love what you spoke about with even just every day, like being really clear on what those desires are every day. Because I think we need to have, yes, that big dream, but then we need to then break it down and look at, well, what is it that we can do every day that keeps us aligned to that, and looking at the stories or the patterns that we have when we hit that certain ceiling. And I know for me, we were talking about this before, one of the things that I want to really work on in my settings is my health, in terms of my strength and my fitness, because this year I was doing really, really well. And again, I don't think I was able to hold that capacity of being somebody that was, strong and fit, because then it went off the wayside and I wasn't able to get myself back on track again. Because obviously when I looked deeper, there were some stories there that I had been telling myself. So I think it's really important to look at our capacity to be able to hold some of these things. And I love the way that you talk about this in terms of our capacity.
Thank you. I think it's a game changer. Honestly,
absolutely.
It is actually a term that's thrown around a little bit at the moment, and I've heard it a lot, and I ponder it myself. Our nervous systems, they're receiving the direction from our consciousness, and they're like, I believe, our biggest protector, the gatekeeper, what we're wired for. And, how often have you had a dream or a goal or a desire, whether it be great or small, and you might achieve it, but a lot of the times those dreams can be short-lived. So it might be a new fitness program, it might be a new way of eating, it might be that you had a lot of success in your business but the results drop off, or it might be great relationship but certain things always keep happening. And a lot of that, I believe, comes back to our wiring and what we're set for. The brain loves familiar, and the brain is our super processor, but something's also wiring the brain, and the nervous system is the extension, was part of the brain. So, that is very alive throughout our body, that is running the show for us. And when we dig deeper and we get into the unconscious programs and our wiring and what we're set for, sometimes or a lot of the times when we can't hold those things is because, are we actually wired for it? Does the nervous system feel safe with that? Is the brain familiar with that? There's so many things that go into it. This is the Embrace Your Extraordinary framework, where a physical you, personal you, and energetic you, and that's made up of the physical body, what's happening in physical life, the results, but it's also looking at our mental, emotional, our belief systems and our feelings. Then we're looking at spiritual and energetic. But all of that really is creating who you are and it's creating your life results. And I think we have a lot more influence over that than what we know. And when we do know, it's really empowering and it's beautiful because there's a
Mm.
lot more you can do about it. But in terms of capacity, even the definition of that is what can you receive and what can you hold? And that's the area that I believe when you're getting certain results, or it might plateau, or they might be short lived, or might not be as big as what you want them to be, then it's looking at, well, how much is your nervous system
Mm.
wired to be able to hold? I know myself, I had big dreams a few years ago, especially financial business dreams, and then thinking I was going to be able to do it. I was doing this fantastic training, and then life showed me a whole lot of circumstances to go, well, sister, you need to work on this stuff. If
Yeah.
you think you're going to be able to hold that sort of space, well, my darling, you got to look at this stuff. You got to look at those belief systems, how you see yourself. Is your identity congruent with that? Do you think you're
Mm.
really going to be able to hold that? So that's been a huge part of my last few years, is really creating, I guess, deeper foundations and
Yeah.
deeper ways to be able to hold in this big stuff that I do want to create, and the little stuff, the stuff in the daily, just to be feeling good every day. But I really think that capacity, looking at what your nervous system can hold, is a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's something you need to be committed to on the daily, and this is where reflection's so important, and really looking at it, life showing you results, life showing you where your consciousness is at, life showing you what your personal settings are. And when we want to expand, even if it's to be able to go for a 10-minute walk instead of a 5-minute walk and have the breath for it, or it could be, make millions of dollars, whatever it is, then you've got to work on and nourish yourself with that wiring to be able to do it and hold it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. But
mm.
I think reflection it's just so important. It's not a one-time act
No.
to do it. It's something that we need to, I believe, incorporate into our everyday, every moment, because it just gives us that opportunity to revisit our intentions, recalibrate where needed, because life gets in the way, and then celebrate, what we're
Yeah.
doing well as well, and the progress that we're actually making.
Mm,
So,
mm. Yeah. What's one of the ways that you do, Dee, that helps you with getting into the energy of, or
ah,
expanding your capacity, creating a new familiar, whatever we want to call it?
again, it comes back to creating space. Like, I think that's so, so important. And really using my breath, just,
Mm,
again, hand on my heart and hand on my belly, and just, really breathing in and really feeling those feelings of what it is that I'm wanting to create, and feeling my heart space expand as
mm,
well. But really, thinking about, well, what would I be saying to myself, while really being connected with my body. And I think that's what I've learned is really important. Like, I have to take those few minutes, first of all, to really connect in
yeah.
with my body, like hand on my heart and my solar plexus, and really use my breath to connect into that. And then really get into that energy of, what would I be thinking? What would I be saying? What would I be feeling? And what would I be doing in that moment? And then once I've done that, how would I feel at the end of that if I have created that? So
Mm,
it's really feeling into my body.
yeah. No, I think that's key as well. And I love that you do that. And I really believe that it's super important is coming back to the body, because the body's how we're experiencing life, and the body's giving us feedback all of the time
Yeah.
for what's going on, and the nervous system showing us. And the first
Yeah.
thing we need to do, and this is what I do, is literally look at, well, what state am I in right now? Am I in stress? Am I in a state to create?
Beautiful.
And the breath is, I believe, a magical superpower to be able to bring you back to presence in the moment. It shows you where your state is. First of all, it's very hard to create from a state of stress because we're in survival. Body's not designed to create when
Yeah.
we're in those states. So the first thing, most awesome thing that any of us have the power to do is use our breath. Our breath is It's the only system in the body that not only does it work unconsciously, we don't have to tell ourselves to breathe, but when we bring awareness to how we breathe, we can literally change what's going on inside us. We
Yeah.
can change our nervous system state. There's a lot we can do with the breath, but initially just coming back to that state of just being able to
Yeah.
pause and have those relaxing breaths and just come back to your body, your heart, to nature, your own beautiful true nature before
Yeah.
you start to imagine. Then once you've got the body relaxed, that's when we can start to imagine, whether it's just to be happy today or if it's to create the business goals or whatever it is. If it were true, if it were really
Yeah.
true right now, what would it actually be like? And giving yourself a moment to dare to dream. Because what happens when we do that is we start to create possibility. It's all energetic, but then that gives instruction to the body for that
Yeah.
new familiar and creates safety in the body that
Yeah.
could be okay. And if it were true, if it were really that simple, all we had to do was imagine
Mm.
it, and you could feel that way right now, what would it feel like? What
Yeah.
would it be like? How might you hold your body if you were feeling that way?
Yeah.
If you were on the outside looking in at you, like what would you look like? What sorts of things might you say or not say? What this does is it helps to create familiar ahead
Yeah.
of the event. It also helps to create wiring. We start to program ourselves that these sorts of things is possible, and it starts the process.
Yeah.
It can also very much reveal to you where you're not in congruence with that, where that's
Yeah.
not easeful, and it shows you, well, these are the parts. These are my opportunities to nourish
Yeah.
more and rewire more. But getting into the energy of, then what it's really doing is helping to create the familiar ahead of the event so that when it shows up, that your nervous system can
Yeah.
cope with it. It's already familiar. So yeah, I think those things are really, really, really important for helping to start to build capacity. And none of this stuff is something that we're going to be able to cover everything that's involved in this sort of conversation, but they're the important things
Yeah.
to really start welcoming in the new year. What is it that you want to create? It starts with that. And then,
Absolutely.
yeah, looking at who do you need to be, or how would you be
Yeah.
if that was true? What's the difference between that identity of you versus who you're being right now? There's lots of nourishing things that you can do within that to create that, but that's kind of the gist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mm.
And we'll also drop a link in the show notes if anyone would like to follow the Welcome in the New Year ritual that I do follow and see if it works for you.
Yeah, I love that journal. It's so beautiful. Deirdre's got lots of gorgeous things happening in her journals that she has to share. They're really beautiful. And the other thing that we have is we've got our Cultivating Energy Shifts guide,
Correct.
which is some of these practices are touched on a little bit here, and how to tap into your own extraordinary true nature and really get started with some of these concepts. That's a really lovely one to get started
Yeah.
with as well.
And it's a beautiful companion to the Welcome in the New Year journal. So
Yeah,
once you've done all your
totally.
reflection and you've got clear on your desires and your lessons and growth opportunities, then the Cultivating Energy Shifts guide really helps you to give you some of those tools to really achieve those
Yeah.
goals. Yeah, and
Yeah,
those
and create.
desires. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you, Jodie, for a inspiring conversation and wishing everybody a extraordinary 2025
Yeah.
as we welcome in the new year.
Yeah, thank you, Tootie. You always inspire me. I love these conversations and just our general life conversations. We always learn from each other. And thank you for
Absolutely.
everything that you share and sharing your beautiful, extraordinary. And to our beautiful listeners, anyone who's tuning into this conversation, remember that you really are extraordinary. You have it all in you to create, and being daring enough and courageous enough to
Absolutely.
embrace it. Happy New Year, and let's hopefully welcome in a beautiful new year that you get to create the life that you desire and are worthy of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. We hope this conversation has inspired you to start to explore, expand, and embrace that extraordinary exists, is possible, and how extraordinary you truly are.
If you loved this conversation, we would be so grateful for you to share it with the people in your world who you think might love to hear it. Please leave a review to help us reach more extraordinary people like you and turn these ripples into waves.
Until next time, remember, you're extraordinary. Dare to embrace it.